Alien girl saves human from a collapse, but human discovers she shouldn't exist anymore. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's return to our main character. Evan Brooks felt the floor trembling before he heard anything. A low metallic groan rolling through the mining corridor like a warning breathed straight into his ear. He paused, narrowing his eyes at the frost creeping across the steel panels above him. Temperature spikes weren't uncommon this far beneath the ice crust, but the way the overhead lights flickered, fast, uneven, made his stomach tighten. He checked the readout on his handheld scanner. Pressure levels were rising too quickly, numbers climbing as if pulled upward by an invisible hand. That's not right, he muttered under his breath. The scanner hissed, crackled, then went dark. A soft rattle drifted down the tunnel. Dust. Then a piece of insulation fluttered past his faceplate, weightless in the failing gravity. Evan turned, ready to call for extraction, when the entire support frame above him gave a shuddering pop. The world tilted. A section of the ceiling sagged, groaned again, and the lights blinked out. He barely had time to inhale before the collapse began. Ice and steel sheared downward in a roar he felt more than heard, vibrating through his ribs. He stumbled back, but his boot caught on a loose cable, slowing him just enough to see a massive beam coming straight toward him. Evan flinched, bracing for the crushing impact. It never came. A blur of pale blue light swept across his vision, and someone, snatched his arm with surprising strength. He felt himself yanked sideways, his heels skidding across the grated floor as the collapsing corridors slammed shut behind him with a muffled thud. Cold air rushed past his face. Then everything stilled. Evan's heartbeat pounded in his ears as he blinked through the haze of dust. A faint glow shimmered ahead, soft and steady, like moonlight held in two hands. As the dust settled, he saw her. A girl, at least. She looked like one, standing only a few feet away. Skin a cool cerulean blue, faintly luminescent. Eyes silver, reflective, watching him with a focus sharper than fear. Her breathing was calm, controlled. She wasn't wearing any mining gear, not even a mask. Yet she stood there in the debris-filled corridor as if the cold and the settling dust barely touched her. Evan pushed himself upright, wincing as he brushed ice crystals from his jacket. Who are you?" he whispered. The girl didn't answer. Instead, she glanced over her shoulder toward the sealed-off passage, as if listening to something he couldn't hear. When she looked back at him, her voice was quiet but firm. "You need to move. This place isn't safe for you." Evan's brow furrowed. "Yeah, I figured that out a minute ago. But how did you?" She stepped toward him, light and swift, and for a second he noticed the faintest tremor in her hands, like she had spent too much strength pulling him out. "There's no time," she said. "Follow me." Her tone carried urgency, but not fear. More like she was used to running before things got worse. Evan hesitated. Something about her presence unsettled him, not in a threatening way, but in a way that didn't fit any protocol, any species he knew. Yet she had saved his life. And right now that was enough. He took one step after her, still catching his breath, still trying to understand what had just happened, still unaware that the girl leading him into the dim auxiliary tunnel wasn't supposed to exist at all. The auxiliary tunnel felt narrower than Evan remembered, a dim passage lined with pipes that hummed softly with recycled air. His boots crunched over loose frost as he followed the blue-skinned girl, her steps light, almost soundless, like she weighed less than the gravity allowed. The dust still clung to the air, shimmering in the faint glow that came from her skin. Evan kept stealing glances, trying to fit her into some known category, some species he had seen in training manuals. Nothing matched. She moved with a calm that made no sense for someone just caught in a collapse. When she paused at a junction and lifted her hand toward a control panel, Evan saw the slight shake again. A tremor. Subtle but real. He stepped forward. "Are you hurt?" She did not look at him as she answered. No, it was too quick, too practiced. The panel sparked at her touch, but instead of reacting with surprise, she simply pressed her palm flat against the metal. The door unlocked with a soft click. No passcode. No badge. Just her hand. Evan blinked. How did you do that? She turned her head slightly, silver eyes flicking toward him as if deciding how much truth to give. The system still remembers me. The words were quiet, almost apologetic. Before he could ask what that meant, she continued walking. He followed, feeling the cold grow thicker as they moved deeper underground. The emergency lights overhead cast long shadows, and every time her glow brushed across the walls, the metal seemed to soften, as though warmed by her presence. They reached a small pressure chamber, barely large enough for two people. She gestured for him to step inside. He hesitated on the threshold. You never told me your name. She blinked, as if caught off guard by something so ordinary. Leary. The name drifted through the cold air like something fragile. Evan nodded. I am Evan. Thanks for saving me back there. Leary did not smile, but her expression softened just a little. You were in danger. I could not let you be harmed. Her reasoning sounded simple, but her voice trembled on the last word, like something about the idea unsettled her. The chamber door closed with a soft hiss. The pressure adjusted, making Evan's ears pop. Leary stood with her hands clasped together, looking down at her fingers as though studying the slight glow beneath her skin. Evan watched her in the dim light. She seemed focused on something far away, something heavy. Leary, he said gently, I think you should tell me what is going on. How were you near a restricted mining corridor? And how did you pull me out like that? She did not lift her head. It would be safer for you not to know. You did not think about safety when you ran into a collapsing hallway for me. Her breath caught for a second, soft and quick. That was different. Why? She hesitated. The chamber lights flickered, and in that brief dimness, he saw her expression shift into something fragile, almost fearful. When the light returned, she stepped closer, only enough to be heard clearly. Because you are human, she whispered. And humans do not abandon. Evan frowned, confused by her tone, by the weight the word carried. Before he could ask more, the chamber finished cycling and the exit door slid open, revealing a maintenance bridge stretching toward the outer docking bay. Leary glanced at the bay, then at Evan. We need to keep moving, she said. There is not much time before someone realizes the collapse was not an accident. Her voice stayed steady, but her hands trembled again, as if her body knew a truth she was not ready to speak. Evan stepped beside her, matching her pace. He did not look at her this time. He looked ahead, where the cold air drifted toward the dark loading platforms, where answers waited in shadows he had not known existed until she appeared in them. He walked on, unaware that every step beside her was pulling him deeper into a story she never expected anyone to share. The service door's pale light pulsed in a slow, steady rhythm, almost like a heartbeat trapped behind metal. Leary stopped just short of touching it, her fingers hovering a few inches from the cold surface, as if the door itself carried a memory she was not ready to face. Evan stood beside her, the faint glow from her skin reflecting off his visor, giving the moment a quiet, unreal brightness. You do not have to open it, he said gently. She lowered her hand, the glow along her fingertips flickering like a candle in a draft. If I do not, she whispered, you will never understand why I ran. Evan watched her take a breath, slow and steady, before she pressed her palm flat against the panel. The door hissed open without resistance. No alarms. No authorization prompts. Just a soft release of warm air, carrying the faint scent of sterile equipment and coolant. Leary stepped inside first. Evan followed, and the door slid shut behind them with a quiet thud. The room was small, barely larger than a storage capsule, with smooth metal walls and a single circular station in the center. On the surface lay a dormant console, its glassy interface dull until Leary approached. The moment she neared it, the console flickered awake in a circle of pale blue light that matched her own radiance. Evan stared as symbols scrolled rapidly across the screen, reorganizing themselves into a clean system prompt labeled Archived Profiles. Leary looked at him once, a silent warning of what he was about to see, then reached forward and selected a file. Her name appeared in clear, glowing letters. Leary, 07. Beneath it, a short line of text, status, decommissioned. Date, 5 years prior. Evan exhaled slowly. What does that mean? She did not answer. Instead, she opened the file. The console projected a faint holographic outline above the surface. It was her. Same height, same glow, same silver eyes. But the expression on the projection was different. Colder. More rigid. Less alive. Additional text scrolled down the side. Prototype unit. Emotional variance outside acceptable range. Scheduled for termination and data purge. Leary's eyes closed. Her glow dimmed further, almost to nothing. Evan swallowed hard, reading the words again. Termination. Purge. They wanted to erase you, he said softly. Leary shook her head. Not wanted. They did. She stepped back from the console, her hands clasped tightly, as if holding herself together. I was not supposed to stay conscious when they decommissioned me. The others did not. But something failed. Or something worked too well. She looked at Evan, and for the first time he saw fear reflected openly in her silver eyes. I remembered myself. Evan felt the cold deepen in the room, not from the temperature, but from the weight of her admission. So you escaped. I wandered, she said quietly. The systems forgot me. The world forgot me. And that was good. It meant I could exist without being found. Her gaze drifted to the door they had entered through. Until today. Evan stepped closer, lowering his voice. You saved me. That cannot be a mistake. Leary held his gaze for a moment that stretched in the quiet space between them, her light warming just slightly, as if his words reached something she kept hidden. It felt like the right thing to do, she said, even if I should not have been there. The console dimmed, returning to its dormant state, but the room felt different now, charged with a truth that neither of them could ignore. As they turned to leave, a soft hum passed through the floor. Evan paused. What was that? Leary listened, her expression tightening. A systems sweep, she murmured. They are checking for anomalies after the collapse. The hum grew slightly louder, brushing the air like a scanner passing through the walls. Leary stepped back instinctively, her glow flickering with unease. Evan watched her pulse of light tremble against the metal floor. If they detect you. She nodded once, understanding the thought he could not finish. We have to move, she whispered, her voice steady even as her hands shook. Before the station remembers me again. Together, they stepped back toward the door, the faint echo of the sweep following close behind, as if trying to catch up to a story that had slipped through the system's grasp. The hum of the system's sweep followed them out of the archive room like a quiet reminder that time was slipping away. Leary moved quickly, her steps light but uneven, and Evan noticed the faint shimmer along her arms pulsing faster than before. She was anxious, even if she tried to hide it. The maintenance bridge ahead looked longer now, stretched in a haze of cold air and dim amber lights. The sweep's vibration trembled through the floor panels in slow intervals, each one a little stronger, like the station was tightening its focus. Evan kept his voice low. How far do we need to go? Leary glanced toward the far end of the bridge. There is a ventilation hub beyond the next junction. It leads to the exterior docks. Exterior. Evan raised an eyebrow. In this temperature? The cold will not harm me, she said softly. But it will hide us for a while. Her glow flickered again, and Evan's worry deepened. He matched her pace, staying close enough to steady her if she stumbled. They passed under a row of emergency panels, each one humming with faint static as the system's sweep activated another layer of scans. The panels read the station's atmosphere, structural integrity, thermal shifts. If any of them picked up a heat signature or an unregistered life form, alarms would follow. Leary slowed when they reached the junction. She paused beside a narrow metal grate set into the wall and pressed her hand near its edge. The grate loosened slightly, but not enough to move. She exhaled, and the glow beneath her skin brightened. The metal warmed, bending just enough for her to pull it free. Evan stared. You can manipulate temperature? A small range, she said. It was part of my original design. She stepped aside so he could enter. First, the vent was taller than Evan expected, almost like a small access hallway rather than a crawlspace. Cold air flowed through it, brushing past in quiet currents that carried the scent of frost and dust. Leary followed him inside and pulled the grate back into place with her fingertips, shaping the metal carefully so it resealed without leaving marks. Evan watched her hands, noticing how they trembled again when she let go. You are burning too much energy, he said quietly. You need to rest. She shook her head. If I stop now, the sweep will catch us. We must reach the dock. The narrow vent stretched forward in a straight line, illuminated only by the faint light from Leary's skin. Evan kept his hand on the wall to steady himself, feeling the cold seep through his glove. Why would they run a sweep this deep, he asked. The collapse was nowhere near this section. Because the collapse was not the real concern, Leary replied. Her voice echoed softly in the confined space. The station sensed an anomaly in the registry. A file that should not exist. A presence it could not identify. Evan looked back at her. You mean you? She met his eyes without hesitation. Yes. They continued forward until the vent opened into a small chamber shaped like an inverted dome. Thin beams of icy air drifted down from the ceiling vents, shimmering when they passed near Leary's glow. Evan stepped onto the grated floor, testing it for stability. Is this the hub? Leary nodded and moved to a circular hatch on the far side. She brushed her fingers over the locking mechanism, but this time the metal did not respond. The hatch stayed firmly sealed. She tried again, pressing harder, and the glow around her eyes brightened, but the lock remained unmoved. Evan stepped closer. What is wrong? Leary lowered her hand slowly. The system's sweep has locked external access. It will not open for me. It knows I am here. For the first time since he met her, her voice held something fragile, something that made the cold in the chamber feel sharper. Evan placed his hand beside hers on the frozen metal. Then we will find another way out, he said softly. Together. Behind them, the hum of the sweep grew louder, inching closer, as if the station itself was searching for the girl it had once erased. The chamber felt colder now, as if the air itself sensed the tightening net around them. Evan kept his hand on the sealed hatch, feeling the faint vibration of the lock mechanism resisting every attempt Leary made to influence it. Her glow had dimmed to a soft pulse, the light barely brushing the grated floor beneath her feet. She stared at the metal, her breath steady but shallow, as though she was fighting something inside herself. Evan stepped closer, lowering his voice so it would not echo. Leary, listen to me. The hatch is not the only way out. She shook her head slowly. The ventilation hub is the most direct route. If we search for another path, the sweep will overtake us. Then let it, Evan said. We will deal with it together. Her eyes lifted to his, silver and uncertain. You do not understand what the sweep does. It is not meant to harm. It is meant to identify. When it detects something that does not match any registry, it flags it for review. Evan frowned. Review by who? The system administrators. The ones who run this sector, she replied softly. If they learn that a decommissioned prototype is active, they will send for me. Her voice trembled at the end, not with fear of danger, but with fear of being taken back into the shadows she had escaped. Evan took a slow breath, grounding himself in the cold air and the steady hum creeping through the walls. Leary, a system does not get to decide whether you exist. Her pulse of light flickered at his words, faint but warm. You say that because you are human, she whispered. Your existence is not conditional. The sweep's hum grew closer, brushing the dome-shaped chamber like a soft current of air. Evan looked up at the vents above them, watching tiny crystals shake loose with each pass of the scanning pulse. After a moment, he turned back to her. There has to be an access shaft or a secondary tunnel. Leary closed her eyes, searching her memory. There is a maintenance conduit beneath the floor. It is narrow and was never meant for passage, but it leads toward the interior processing wing. Can we open it? She hesitated, not without triggering a minor alert. Evan gave a small shrug. Minor is better than major. Show me where. Leary moved to the center of the chamber where the grated panels met in a circular seam. She knelt, her fingers brushing lightly along the edge. A faint glow traveled through the metal, mapping out the hidden access. She pressed gently, and the seam loosened just enough to lift. Evan helped her raise the panel. Beneath it, a slim conduit stretched into darkness, wide enough for one person to crawl through at a time. A soft draft of cool air drifted upward. You go first, Evan said. Leary hesitated. If I go first, my glow will announce our presence through the conduit. Then I will go first. Evan stepped into the narrow opening and lowered himself into the conduit. The metal felt colder here, untouched by heaters or insulation. Leary followed, closing the panel gently above them. Her light filled the space behind him with a muted blue hue, just enough to guide them forward. The conduit walls curved in a gentle arc, forcing Evan to move slowly, careful not to scrape against the metal. The hum of the sweep passed overhead once, then again, fainter this time, as if the system was uncertain where to look next. After several minutes, Leary's voice floated softly behind him. Evan. Yes. Why did you defend me? He kept crawling, the question echoing in his chest. Because you saved me, and because nobody deserves to be erased. Her glow brightened, lighting the conduit walls with a gentler warmth. You speak as if my life has value. It does, Evan replied. Even if they forgot it. For a moment she said nothing, but the soft tremor in her breath told him the words reached her. The conduit angled downward, leading them toward the deeper parts of the station, where secrets did not echo as loudly. Behind them, the sweep quieted, as if the system was losing the trail of the one anomaly it was never meant to find. The conduit leveled out after a long descent, widening just enough for Evan to ease forward into a crouched position. The air was colder here, carrying the faint chemical scent of processing units and coolant lines. Behind him, Leary's soft glow filled the narrow space with a pale blue warmth that kept the shadows from feeling too close. Evan brushed frost from a small service hatch in front of him and tested the panel. With his shoulder, it did not budge. He examined the seam, searching for any sign of a manual release. It is locked from the outside, he murmured. Leary crawled closer, her glow reflecting faintly off the curved metal. May I try? Evan shifted aside, giving her room. She pressed her fingertips gently to the center of the panel. The metal responded with a soft ripple of light, but only for a moment before fading again. She tried a second time, slower, focusing her touch. The panel flickered like it wanted to obey, but could not. Leary exhaled, her shoulders tightening. The sweep changed the security permissions. It is blocking any interface it cannot identify. Evan studied her face, noticing the faint strain in her eyes. You said this conduit leads to the interior processing wing. Is there another exit beyond this hatch? Yes, she said. A junction hub just past this door. But we must get through. Evan ran his thumb along the seam again, thinking, what if we trigger a manual override? It will create a local alert, she warned. Only within this section, Evan added. That buys us a little time before anyone investigates. Enough to get out. Leary hesitated, her glow dimming in thought. It may work. Evan gave a small nod. Show me where. Leary pointed to a small indentation near the lower corner of the hatch. It looked like nothing more than a design flaw, but when Evan pressed his glove against it, he felt a slight give beneath the metal. A hidden latch. He braced his other hand against the conduit wall and applied steady pressure. The latch clicked, then resisted stubbornly. Leary reached out, placing her hand beside his. On 3, he said. She nodded. 1, 2, 3. Their combined effort shifted the mechanism just enough for the panel to jump open an inch. A soft alarm tone pulsed through the wall, low and rhythmic. Leary tensed. The alert has been triggered. We must move quickly. Evan pushed the hatch fully open and climbed into the junction hub. The space was larger than the conduit, a circular room filled with silver pipes, humming processors, and diagnostic panels that blinked in soft rotations. Leary followed him through, her glow casting long shadows that bent across the curved walls. She steadied herself against a processor unit, taking a slow breath. Evan stood beside her, keeping his voice calm. Tell me what to look for. Another exit? Leary scanned the room, her eyes following the branching pathways. There, she said, pointing to a narrow passage that curved toward the deeper sectors. If we follow that corridor, we can reach a transport rail. It will take us away from this wing. They started forward, their footsteps soft on the metal floor. Leary, Evan said after a moment. Why were you in the mining corridor when the collapse happened? That area was restricted. Even I barely had access. She hesitated mid-step, her glow dimming at the edges. I was looking for a place where the station would not detect me, she replied. The deeper levels have fewer sensors. I thought I could stay hidden there. But you saw me, Evan said gently. You chose to run toward danger to help. Leary's voice softened. Because you were alone. And you called out. Evan stopped, turning toward her. I do not remember calling out. She met his gaze, her silver eyes reflecting a quiet truth. You did not use your voice. But your fear echoed through the corridor. I sensed it. It was familiar. He exhaled slowly, understanding her words more than she expected. Before he could speak, the distant hum of the sweep shifted, growing sharper, more focused. Leary stiffened. The alert redirected its path, she whispered. It is coming toward us. Evan placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. Then we keep moving. Leary nodded, her glow brightening just enough to light their path as they hurried down the narrow passage, the sweep echoing faintly behind them like a memory the station was refusing to let go. The narrow passage curved downward in a gentle spiral, the metal walls glistening with thin sheets of frost that fractured into tiny sparks of light whenever Leary's glow brushed past them. Evan kept close beside her, steadying her whenever her steps faltered. The hum of the sweep pulsed behind them, no longer distant or uncertain. It was following the alert they had triggered, each sonic wave crawling through the structure like a quiet searchlight. Leary paused at the bottom of the spiral, placing her palm against a small access panel concealed beneath a layer of ice. It refused to respond. She tried again, slower, her glow warming, but the panel remained silent. Evan stepped beside her. Is it locked because of the alert? Leary withdrew her hand, her breath forming a soft cloud in the cold air. The station is restricting all bypass routes. It is prioritizing containment. Containment of you, Evan said gently. She did not answer. Instead, she turned toward the dim corridor ahead, where a faint rail track extended into the darkness. Evan focused on the rail, recognizing the design. This is a maintenance line, he said. It connects to the inner transit loop. Leary nodded. If we can reach the main track, the system will be too occupied rerouting trains to focus on deeper scans. They continued along the narrow track, their footsteps soft and measured. Evan noticed Leary's glow dimming again, her movements growing slower, each step deliberate. How much energy does this take out of you? He asked. Staying hidden, she murmured. Moving through systems that do not accept me. It drains the core that keeps me stable. Evan studied her face. A faint shimmer of exhaustion lingered beneath her eyes. Tell me something, he said softly. When you were made, what was your purpose? Leary hesitated, her fingers grazing the rail as they walked. I was created for interface support, she said. A living connection between complex systems. My kind could manage data flows, adjust atmospheric regulation, and assist in crisis navigation. Evan nodded slowly. So you were designed to help? Yes, she whispered. But prototypes like me developed more response patterns than expected. Evan frowned. Response patterns? She looked at him, her silver eyes reflecting the dim emergency lights. Emotion. They reached a junction where the maintenance line joined the larger transit loop. A soft breeze traveled down the tunnel, carrying the faint scent of warm circuitry and moving machinery. Evan stepped onto the main platform and glanced around. If we follow the track towards Section 5, we can access the auxiliary dock. Leary did not move right away. Her gaze traveled along the curve of the tunnel, her glow fading just enough to make her expression harder to read. Evan, she said quietly. The administrators did not consider emotion a flaw because it made us dangerous. They considered it a flaw because it made us unpredictable. Evan turned toward her. You are not unpredictable. You made a choice to save someone. I should not have, she whispered. That is what makes me an anomaly. Before he could respond, the sweep's hum intensified, rolling through the tunnel with a deeper resonance that vibrated along the rail. Leary stiffened. It found the alert signature. It is less than 1 sector away. Evan looked down the long expanse of track, calculating the distance. If we run, we can reach the dock. Leary shook her head. The sweep will catch us on the open track. Evan stepped closer, lowering his voice in the cold stillness. Then we will make it lose your trail. Her eyes lifted toward him, the faint tremble in her hands returning. How? He glanced at the rail interface panel near the wall. We will reroute the system. If the sweep thinks we took another path, it will follow the wrong signal. Leary hesitated. The panel will not accept my touch. It does not need yours, Evan said, already moving to the access console. It only needs a human. He pressed his hand to the scanner. The console lit up, accepting his identity instantly. What should I change? Leary stepped beside him, guiding his hand with hers. Her touch was warm, despite the cold air. Select the junction, override, and redirect the maintenance signature towards Section 7. It will create a false path. Evan followed her instructions, the interface responding with a soft chime. The moment the command registered, the sweep hum shifted, diverting toward the fabricated route. Leary exhaled, relief softening her posture. It worked, she whispered. Evan gave a small smile. You are not the only one who can help. She looked at him for a long moment, her glow returning in a gentle wave that reached the edges of her eyes. Evan, she said softly, you did not have to risk exposing yourself. He stepped back from the panel. You saved me first. The sweep faded into the distance, leaving a quiet stillness hanging over the track. Leary took one step forward, her glow illuminating the curve ahead. Then let us hurry, she said. We do not have long before the system realizes the trail is false. Together, they moved down the long stretch of rail, their footsteps echoing softly in the vast underground tunnel, two figures walking toward a truth that neither of them fully understood yet. The tunnel opened into a wide loading chamber, the last barrier between the restricted inner rails and the auxiliary dock. A soft layer of frost covered the floor, catching the pale reflection of Leary's glow as she stepped forward. The air felt still here, untouched, almost suspended, as if the station itself had paused its breath. Evan scanned the chamber, noticing the rows of unused cargo skiffs lined against the walls. Most were inactive, but one near the far corner shimmered with the faint blue light of a standby power cell. There, he said quietly. Leary followed his gaze. If we can activate it manually, it will carry us to the outer platform. They moved across the chamber, their footsteps soft on the frosted steel. Leary's glow pushed back the dimness, casting long shadows that stretched behind them. When they reached the skiff, Evan brushed a layer of ice from the control console and tapped the manual sequence. The system responded instantly, recognizing his human signature. The skiff's lights flickered on, warm and steady. Leary watched the activation with a soft look in her eyes. Humans were always better at improvising, she murmured. Evan glanced at her. Is that a compliment? She gave the smallest hint of a smile. It is an observation. Before they could board, a deep vibration passed through the chamber floor. Not the sweep. Something heavier. Slower. Leary froze. The system administrators have deployed a core scan. Evan tensed. What does that mean? It reads for anomalies that do not match any known biological pattern, she whispered. It will detect me instantly if it reaches this area. How long before it does? Leary listened for a moment, her glow flickering faintly with concentration. Less than 1 minute. Evan moved quickly, helping her onto the skiff's narrow platform. Then we leave now. Leary steadied herself, but as he climbed in behind her, she caught his sleeve. Evan, she said softly, you could still walk away. If the system detects me, it will not question you. You have a place here. A life. You should not lose it for me. He looked at her, the cold air making each breath visible between them. Leary, I am not leaving you. She shook her head gently, her silver eyes reflecting the warm lights of the skiff. I was meant to be erased. You were meant to be safe. There is nothing in logic that says you should stay. Good thing I am not making decisions based on logic, he replied. Her glow warmed at that. Radiating a calm she seemed unable to give herself. You do not understand, she whispered. If the administrators find me, they will assume you helped. They will question your intentions. They may restrict your access or relocate you. Evan held her gaze. Then it is a good thing I do not care about what they think. Leary stared at him for a long moment, her expression shifting from disbelief to something quieter, something almost fragile. Why? She asked finally. Why would you choose to stand with me? Evan reached for the skiff's controls, but his voice remained gentle. Because you saved me. Because you mattered enough to try. Because something about you feels more human than half the people I know. Her breath caught, a soft sound swallowed by the hum of the skiff engaging its lift system. She looked away, not in rejection but in an effort to hide the emotion rising beneath her calm exterior. The chamber lights flickered once, signaling the core scan's arrival in the sector. Leary stiffened. Evan gripped the controls. Hold on. The skiff lurched forward onto the narrow track leading toward the auxiliary dock. Frost scattered beneath its hover field, shimmering in the air like powdered glass. The scan pulse followed, rolling into the chamber like a silent tidal wave. Leary closed her eyes, bracing for something she could not escape. But the pulse washed past them, unanswered, diverted by the false trail Evan had created earlier. When Leary opened her eyes, the chamber behind them was still, quiet, empty. She looked at him, her glow brightening with disbelief and relief. "Evan," she said softly. "The system did not detect me." He gave a small smile. "Told you. We do this together." Leary lowered her gaze, her voice almost a whisper. "You are the first person to say that to me." The skiff glided into the auxiliary dock, its lights casting wide arcs across the frozen platform. Evan powered the vehicle down, and the quiet settled around them like a blanket. Leary stepped off slowly, her glow reflecting against the wide observation window that opened toward the distant stars. Outside, the galaxy stretched in a silent sweep of light and dark, a view few ever saw from this forgotten dock. Evan joined her, standing a few inches behind. The cold air made her glow halo softly around her silhouette. She lifted her hand, pressing it lightly to the glass. "I should not exist," she whispered. "Yet you keep looking at me as if I do." Evan did not answer. He simply stood with her in the quiet, letting the silence speak for both of them. A single star reflected in her eyes, bright and distant. And for the first time since she had escaped her fate, Leary did not look like an anomaly. She looked like someone who belonged.